like the new Inquisition. See, there's an Inquisition going on right now in black society, also in white society. There's a new Inquisition going on. Because, see, they're trying to get all the white people on code heavy, especially the white supremacists. The white supremacists are trying to get white society on code. So they're having their own Inquisition. All these school shootings and all that, that's a form of Inquisition. That's them letting white people know y'all better get on code. And they've done this before. See, we got to study the history of Spain. The history of Spain is very interesting. A lot of the cultures that we see now, especially a lot of things having to do with white supremacists and the way they interact with us, a lot of that started in Spain. As we know, in Spain, you had, I think, was it King Roderick? I think that was his name. You had King Roderick, the Visigoth king, in the medieval times, in this around the 600s. And there were some things going on out there in Spain. There was a lot of the little Visigoths and the Goths and the Vandals and all these people bickering with each other. And there were some people who were dissatisfied in Spain. And some of the enemies of Roderick went into North Africa and started dry snitching and saying, hey, Roderick ain't shit. He's a punk bitch, and y'all can go in there and take his ass if you want to. So you had some people sneaking over to North Africa, and North Africa is right next to Spain, and they were telling him how weak everything was up there. So the Moors sent a test army up there. Then they said, okay, hey, yeah, we can come up here and take over. So they sent a whole fleet of people up there in the year 711. And they started to take over Spain. All these black people went into Spain and started to take over. Now, history tries to cover a lot of it up by using the term Muslim, but these were black people. The Moors, for the most part, damn near all of them were black, and you had some Arabs, some lighter Arabs and things like that, and a few lighter Berbers mixed in with them. But the Moors were these black men who took over. They took over Spain and Portugal. They took over for 700 years. We talked about this in all of the Hidden Colors films. If you do not have Hidden Colors, y'all need to get the Hidden Colors films, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing is, in Spain, the brothers brought in a lot of upgrades. Not only did they upgrade Spain, those upgrades went all over Europe. They really upgraded Europe. These brothers brought in different foods, science, mathematics, alchemy, building structures, bathing, running water. I mean, they had it popping up in Spain. Spain was the place to be during medieval times. As far as Europe, everything else in Europe was not cracking, but Spain was the place to be. The problem was this, though. Some of the white people in northern Spain, and some of those places stayed, pretty segregated to themselves. They didn't get too affected. Certain places. But the white Spanish realized, wait a minute, with these black people all up in here, they're changing the color of the people. We're not white no more. And that's a problem. So these people, even though they're upgrading us and they're giving us all this fly shit, we got all this fly infrastructure. And somebody in the room said they conquered Sicily. Yes, they did. Yes, they had Sicily for a long time, to a lot of places in southern Europe. But in Spain, they realized we're getting dark out here. We're not white no more. And it's not like these people are harming us, but just their presence here. Just their presence here is darkening up our country. And that's a problem. So they got into survival mode. They were like, how can we remain white? We got to get these Moors out of here. So they started having, in certain parts, of northern Spain, they started to get their little troops together and try to push back. And one advantage they saw is that a lot of the Moorish kingdoms were divided. See, they looked at our weaknesses and used our weaknesses as their strengths. In Moorish Spain, there's a lot of brothers who wanted to be the boss. So they had different Moorish kingdoms all over Spain. That's why there's so many castles there. Spain is loaded with castles. These Moorish castles, because all the Moorish kings, they wanted to be the boss. They wanted to be a king here, have their little harem here, and have their harem there. So the white Spaniards, they saw this is an advantage we can use. So we can take over some of these little small kingdoms. So they all started to get on code. And then what they needed to do, when they saw that enough of them, if they got together, they could take over and conquer little small Moorish kingdoms here and there. They said, wait, we need to get as many white people on code as possible. So later on, when the Moorish presence had been there for a few hundred years, the Moors, there was a lot of infighting and more bickering with the Moors. So the white Christians, quote unquote, and I say Christians with a quote, they started to push more Moors further south in Spain. So they're getting their little weight up. So what they needed to do, they needed to get more white people on code, more Christians on code. So this is when they had the Inquisition. The Inquisition was basically, we got these Muslims here, we got Jews here. Now, if you're not a Christian, you're going to be punished. If you're a white person, a Spanish person who's not a Christian, you will be punished. We're going to call you a heretic, accuse you of heresy. They were real big on that. They had something called heresy. Anybody who wasn't on the Christian code, you're going to be killed, punished, tortured, and they would do this for any reason. So they were doing this to white people first to get them on code. So with the Inquisition, for hundreds of years, they would come up with all these techniques on how to hang white people, how to beat them with certain whips, all these different types of torture techniques. They were real big on these different types of torture techniques. Now, these same techniques would be used on black people, especially over here in the U.S. They use these same techniques. But somebody in the chat room mentioned something very interesting. Yes, with pork, they wanted to see who was a secret Muslim or a secret Jewish person. Remember, Jews and Muslims, you don't eat pork. So what they would do, the white Christians in Spain, they started the practice of hanging up pork outside of their shop to let people know this is not a Christian. This is not a Muslim or Jewish shop. This is a white Christian shop, because they knew that Jews and Moors would not go to a shop that was serving pork. So when y'all see these little delis and all that stuff with meat hanging up in the front, well, that's where that came from. And again, they started to torture the white people to make them get on code. Look at the similarities. Look at what they do here. They would torture. They go in and shoot up a white church. They go shoot up a white school. They're trying to get them on code. You better get on code. So they're getting them on code over there in Spain. That Inquisition, especially women. If these women were not on code and these women were desiring to get into the harems of the Moors, because the Moors were real big on getting them white women, them white Spanish women in their harems. So any white woman who did all that or desired to do that, because they know white women, a lot of them have a deep desire for the soul pole. So they would beat that out of them. And they would say, hey, this is a witch. That's why they were burning them at the stake. They're like, this bitch wants some black dick. That's a witch. Give me that fire. Burn her ass up. And let all you other white women know. Y'all go out there fucking with them Moors, you're going to get this fire on your ass. You understand? They were getting them on code. And they were not taking no no's, ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're going to get on code. Yes, somebody mentioned the Torture Museum. I've been to the Torture Museum in Spain. I've been all over Spain studying. So in Spain, they had something called the limpieza de sangre. That's the blood purity. They got real big on this whole blood purity thing. We want to have pure blood Spanish, meaning white. See, a lot of mainstream historians don't talk about that blood purity. See, this is where white supremacy is being formed. See, they were forming modern white supremacy in Spain. All that blood purity talk. That came out of Spain initially. So they were getting all the white people on code with all these torture techniques, and eventually they would use these torture techniques on the Moors. So they would catch these Moors and push them further and further and further south. And until around the 1400s, most of the Moors were basically in the Granada area. They had basically cleansed all the Moors out of Spain. And you had two major kingdoms, Castile and Aragon. Those were the two major kingdoms in Spain. And then you had Granada on the bottom. And Boabdil was the guy who was holding that down. Now, Boabdil, he was trying to make little deals with the white Christian kingdoms. And he was infighting with other Moors down there in Granada. So they were still divided when they needed to be codified more than ever. But the white supremacists in Spain, they were becoming more codified. And then Queen Isabella of Castile married her cousin, who was the king of Aragon, and they brought those Spanish kingdoms together under one unified Spanish white umbrella. And that's how they were able to finally get the Moors completely out of Spain. They combined their military and got them out. This is why when they got them out, they were able to start exploring the world. And they were very brutal. A lot of people don't talk about the brutality that was used against the Moors. All the torture, the use of them dogs. That's another thing. They would use them damn Spanish mastiffs, them Spanish mastiff dogs. They would use them to attack the Moors. And them Iberian mastiffs or Spanish mastiffs, these dogs are huge as shit. These dogs weigh like 250 pounds and they're like 3 feet tall. And not only that, just to understand how brutal they were, a lot of the children in Spain, the Moorish children, the black children, were orphaned because, their parents were killed in war. They were exiled. So there was a lot of Moorish black orphans just living around churches and mosques, and they would use them same Spanish mastiffs to eat the children. They would let those Spanish mastiffs eat those black children in Spain. This is how cold they were. And they told a lot of the Moors, if you convert, we'll leave you alone, let you stay. Because, see, they tried to make it seem like it was just a religious thing. And then the Moors converted. There were some who left. There were some who were killed. But the ones who stayed and converted to Christianity were called the Moriscos. And after a while, with the Moriscos, they stayed there for some generations. And the white supremacists in Spain said, you know what? We don't trust you, Moriscos. We think y'all say you're Christians, but y'all might be practicing Islam behind closed doors. So we just want all of you out. So in 1609, they signed an edict to just let all the Moriscos out. Those were the converted Moors. So they said, look, all y'all asses got to go. All of you got to go. So they ran all of them out. And then when they ran all the Moors out, they started the practice of bullfighting and the running of the bulls. The running of the bulls in Spain, that's what that ceremony is. When they all dress up in white and chase a black bull all around the city, that's them chasing out the Moors. So they were very celebratory in getting out the Moors finally. And once they got the Moors out, then they took all that wealth that the Moors left. Remember, when they destroyed those kingdoms, they took the wealth. That's why Spain was able to travel all around the world first. How y'all think Columbus and all these people were able to get those ships together and come over here? Europe wasn't popping at all in the 1400s. Europe was so not popping. The only thing that was popping was Spain, and it was popping because they took all the wealth that the Moors had generated. And Columbus took a lot of those soldiers and a lot of those dogs. They took a lot of those big ass mastiffs down to Cuba, and they used those same type of dogs on some of the black people during the slave trade. And remember another thing too, a lot of black people who were in Spain, they were thrown on those slave ships and brought over here too. That's another thing. So a lot of people who are over here descended directly from the Moors who were in Spain. But this just shows you how codified they got and how serious they were to get on code. They had to have an inquisition to get people on code. And the white supremacists, they look up to that to this day. The white supremacists look up to the way the Spanish handled their business today with lynchings, all of that ceremonial lynching, all of that came from the Inquisition. That came from the Inquisition. And another thing that's very interesting, every year they have celebrations of them running the Moors out of Spain. They have what's called Holy Week. It's Semana Santa. And my Spanish is bad, but I think it's Semana Santa. That's the Holy Week. And I want y'all to look this stuff up. Holy Week in Spain, what they do, you have a group of people there called the Nazarenos, and they put on these robes and these pointed hats. And they march around the city. And I want y'all to Google what this looked like. Semana Santa and the Nazarenos. Google what they look like when they dress up in these robes and these hats and march around celebrating running the Moors and the Jews, because they ran Jewish people out of Spain too. They walk around. These outfits look exactly like Ku Klux Klan outfits. And this is exactly where the Klan got their outfits from. A lot of white historians try to pretend that this is just some major coincidence. It is not a coincidence, because over in Spain, they wear these robes and they even have the Iron Cross on it, just like the Klan. This is where the Klan got that from, them punishing and committing genocide against black people and Jewish people in Spain and running them out and being victorious. The Klan dresses up in that exact same garb and celebrate the same thing. That's where they got it from. You understand? So this shows the kind of code that these people get on. They're on code majorly. And they're serious about getting everybody else on code. See, the thing is, black society over here, we're taught about diversity this and diversity that. Diversity is our greatest strengths. Now, codification is your greatest strength. Because they don't talk that diversity stuff when they get around their groups. When white people get together, they don't talk diversity. When Asians get together, they don't talk diversity. When Hispanics get together, they don't talk diversity. They talk about what's in the best interest for their groups. When we come around, all of a sudden, everything has to be diversity. Everything has to be about inclusiveness. Everything has to be weak and watered down. That's why whenever we start talking about excluding others, everybody gets nervous. Everybody gets nervous because you know what? They don't want another rising of the Moors. They don't want another rising, and they know that we have that energy in us. We have that spirit in us to challenge them because we know instinctively being subjugated by them is wrong, and we know that it should not happen. So they always have an eye on us, and they always have plans and plots on ways to undermine us. And the minute we start talking about unifying for real, without all of these other saboteur type of groups, they get nervous because they known that us looking for a Pan-Africanist agenda, they know that that has weakened us because they're like, okay, these niggas want Pan-Africanism. What we'll do, we'll let over all these coons from the diaspora who we know don't like them, who we know worships us, and we'll let these niggas undermine them. And that's what they've been doing. They've been letting all these other groups undermine us for the longest. And we're just now really catching on like we're supposed to. That's why we're stopping that. We're shutting that down. That's why nobody knows what to do now. Because see, when you start getting on code, people start freaking out. Because people have rode our coattails for so long. But there's a reason why. Let's go back to the Spanish and the Moors. They brought a lot of Moors over here. Let's be clear. Because understand, the Moors told them about a lot of stuff that was over here because the Moors had been coming over here. Black people have been coming over here, like I told you, for years. There's a reason why Balboa and De Soto and Cortez and all these people heard about all of the gold, and they heard about the Fountain of Youth, and they heard about all of these fabled cities. How the hell did they hear about them? How did all of these Spanish explorers hear about all this stuff? Who told them? The Moors were telling them about all this stuff. That's why they brought a lot of Moors with them. The problem is, and I pointed this out before, one thing in Spain, they had a law where you couldn't take an Arabic name no more. They had a law against that. This is how serious they were about getting Moors and Muslims and Jews out of Spain. They were cleansing this thing to the bone. You couldn't even take an Arabic name. So a lot of black people had Spanish names or Christian names. So when you look at Columbus's log, you'll hear about the Nino brothers and all this stuff, and you thinking, oh, that's just another Spanish cat. No, these are a bunch of black dudes. A lot of them are black. And when some of the Spanish explorers came over to the North American continent, when they went over to the South Carolina, Georgia area, they tried to get a settlement there. 1526, the African people, the black people, rose up against them and absorbed and blended in with the Native American society. A lot of those people became the Red Bones and the Melungeons and all of these people that populate those areas to this day. There are all these mysterious black Native American tribes right along that East Coast area where they act like they don't know the origin of these people and why some of these groups call themselves Moors. Why the Melungeons, for a long time, the Melungeons back in the day, they used to refer to themselves as Moors because they knew where they came from. They knew that they were part of that rebellious group that came with the Spanish, because they came from Spain initially. See, we have to understand history. But out there in North Carolina, Virginia, all of these places, they got these dark Native American people. And a lot of them utilize the name Moor. It's very heavy stuff. So we got to understand our history. We got to understand our history and understand why the white supremacists, when they got on code, they had to smack all the other white supremacists, people in the dominant society. They had to smack them together first before they can tackle the real issue, which were the non-white people. And this is what they're trying to do now. And we have to do that to a certain degree. See, we have to, people who don't want to be on code, they're out. See, we ain't got time for niggas to come around. Well, I want to feel like I want to feel. We ain't all got to be thinking the same way. You know, we ain't got time for niggas like that. You understand what I'm saying? We ain't got time for these little old contrary niggas who just want to be contrary for attention. We don't have time for that. I want to say what I want to say. All that just being combative and argumentative and divisive just for the sake of being divisive. And it's really about getting some damn attention. See, a lot of niggas know. Niggas love attention more than water. So if they're contrary and oppositional about every damn thing, people will focus on them and argue back and forth with their asses. We ain't got time for that shit. Get your ass on somewhere and sit down. We ain't got time for niggas who want to talk in circles and jump through hoops with dumb shit and then debate for 20 and 30 hours. These pointless ass debates, we ain't got time for that. We need codification majorly. And all these people who want to be contrary and combative, trying to get butter biscuits, trying to get attention, they have to go. It's just that simple. This is why we look out for our group. And I notice a lot of these combative, talking in circle ass niggas are usually non-foundational Black American. I'm seeing a lot of that. Most of the people that we see who are not on code, these are non-foundational Black Americans. Not saying all. When we look at how the shea butter Twitter crowd is and how uncodified they are, and everything is about attacking people and online beefs and all this stuff. These are people who ain't from here. So they're out. These are enemies of the state. We have to look at people like that. If you're off code, now if you're from some other place and you're on code, you're good. If you're from some other place and you're on code, you're good. If you're from Kenya or wherever you from and you're on code with us, when we talk about getting reparations, you're there supporting, we can rock with you. But niggas with that colonizer anchor baby mentality who's trying to undermine everything we do, no, you are a problem. See, they did the same thing in Spain. See, there was a lot of anchor babies in Spain. You had a lot of Moors mixed in with the Spanish and all that. And they were like, y'all got to get your asses out of here too. Yeah, I know you were born here. Yeah, you were born here in Cordoba. I know that. But yeah, I know your mama's Spanish and your daddy's a Moor. But get the fuck on up out of here, nigga. We don't trust you. They got them on out of there. It was cruel, but this is how serious they were about getting on code. They're like, yeah, nigga, I know you converted to Christianity. I know your daddy's Spanish and your mama's one of the Moorish chicks. I know, and you mix, but mix your ass on that boat and get up out of here, because we just signed an edict. We don't want you here. We don't trust you, nigga. You're too black for us. It was cruel, but these folks were that serious about getting on code. You dig? So we got to learn how to understand the importance of being on code, ladies and gentlemen.